If marriage is a marathon, mine's got a limp and a hangover. That's what I was thinking Tuesday morning when I found the second phone. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Mason Carter. I'm 38 years old. I build custom homes in the Dallas suburbs, and until about 6 weeks ago, I thought I had a decent life. Not perfect. Nobody's life is perfect, but decent. A wife who seemed to love me, 2 daughters who definitely did, and a business that kept the bills paid with enough left over for the occasional steak dinner. Turns out I was living in a house built on sand. The morning started like most mornings in our neighborhood. Chaos with a side of coffee. I was in the kitchen making pancakes while Laura, my wife, sat at the island scrolling through her phone with that distant look she'd been wearing lately. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, her makeup already perfect even though it was barely 7 in the morning. She worked in HR at a tech company downtown, and she'd always been meticulous about her appearance. "Dad! Janie took my hairbrush again!" Beth yelled from upstairs. Beth was 12, all elbows and attitude, smart as a whip and twice as sharp. "Did not!" Janie's voice, younger and more defensive, echoed down. She was 9, sensitive, and currently going through a phase where she wanted to look exactly like her older sister. "Girls, work it out," I called back, flipping a pancake. "You've got 10 minutes before we leave." Laura didn't look up from her phone. She'd been like this for weeks now, present but not really there, like she was already somewhere else in her head. "You okay?" I asked, sliding a plate in front of her. "Fine," she said, still not looking at me. "Just tired. Tara kept me up late last night." Tara. Laura's best friend since college, a woman who treated me like I was a piece of furniture that came with the house. She'd stayed over the night before, something that was happening more and more frequently. Their girls' nights had become a regular thing, complete with wine, gossip, and Tara's car taking up half our driveway. "She still here?" I asked. "She left early. Had a thing." A thing. Everything was always a thing with Tara. I didn't push it. Pushing Laura lately was like pushing on a bruise. It just made everything hurt worse. The girls thundered downstairs, crisis apparently averted. Beth had her backpack, Janie had the disputed hairbrush, and I had about 3 minutes to get them fed and out the door. Laura kissed them both on the head. She was always good with the girls. And then she was gone, her heels clicking across the hardwood, her perfume lingering behind her like a question mark. That's when I saw it. Laura's gym bag was sitting by the garage door, unzipped. She'd been in such a hurry that she hadn't closed it properly, and there, nestled between her yoga pants and water bottle, was a phone. Not her regular iPhone with the rose gold case. This one was a cheap Android, the kind you buy at a convenience store. My stomach did something complicated. I waited until the girls were occupied with their pancakes, then I picked up the bag and carried it to the garage. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the phone. It wasn't locked. Laura had never been great with passwords. The screen lit up, and I saw a string of text messages from someone saved as S. I started reading. "Can't wait to see you tonight. The Lakewood Inn, room 214. I'll be thinking about you all day." My throat went dry. I scrolled up. There were dozens of messages, going back weeks. Months, maybe. The texts got progressively more explicit, more intimate. There were photos, too. I recognized some of them. They were pictures Laura had supposedly taken for fitness progress. Apparently, she'd been sharing that progress with someone else. Then I found the photos from S-Dick pics, shirtless mirror selfies, and one clear face shot of a guy I recognized immediately. Scott Williams, Laura's old boyfriend from high school. The guy she'd dated before me, the one she'd always described as the one that got away, before quickly adding, "But I'm so glad I ended up with you instead, honey." So that's what a midlife crisis looks like in pixels, I thought, staring at Scott's smug face. He was a real estate agent now, one of those guys whose face was on bus benches all over Dallas. "Scott Williams, your dream home awaits." The irony wasn't lost on me. I took screenshots. Lots of them. Then I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, zipped up the bag, and went back inside to finish breakfast with my daughters. "You okay, Dad?" Beth asked, looking at me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You look weird." "I'm fine, honey," I lied. "Just remembered something I forgot to do for work." The girls finished eating. I drove them to school, and then I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, at the screenshots I'd taken. Part of me wanted to call Laura right then, to scream at her, to demand answers. But another part of me, the part that had survived 3 years of high school wrestling and built a business from nothing, knew that rushing in angry was a good way to lose. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. I needed to know everything first. That afternoon, I came home early. Laura's car wasn't in the driveway, but Tara's was. I could hear them in the kitchen, laughing. I parked down the street and came in through the side gate, quiet as I could. The kitchen window was open, and their voices drifted out. "So when are you going to tell him?" That was Tara, her voice dripping with excitement. "Soon," Laura said. "We're planning a trip next weekend. Family camping out at Mason's dad's old cabin. It'll be the perfect time." "The perfect time for what?" "To end it. Scott and I have it all planned out. Mason's been so distant lately, so checked out. Everyone will understand when I say I need space, that the marriage just isn't working anymore." My heart was pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. "What about the girls?" Tara asked. "They'll adjust. Kids are resilient. And honestly, Scott will be so much better for them. He's successful, ambitious. Mason's just stuck. He's been stuck for years." Stuck. The word hit me like a fist. "Plus," Laura continued, and I could hear the smile in her voice, "Scott's already talking about the house we'll get. Something in Highland Park with a pool. Mason could never afford that." They laughed together, and I stood there in my own backyard, listening to my wife plan my disposal like I was a piece of furniture she was tired of looking at. I went back to my truck and sat there until my hands stopped shaking. Then I drove to Rick's bar. Rick Donovan had been my best friend since high school. He'd played football while I wrestled, and after graduation, while I went into construction and Laura went to college, Rick had bounced around before finally buying a dive bar on the east side of Dallas. It wasn't fancy, but it was his, and it was the one place I could always count on for honesty. "You look like hell," Rick said when I walked in. It was 3 in the afternoon, and the place was mostly empty except for a couple of regulars nursing beers. "I need a drink," I said. "That bad?" "Worse." He poured me a whiskey, and I told him everything. The phone, the texts, the conversation I'd overheard. Rick listened without interrupting, his face getting darker with every word. "That's cold," he finally said. "That's really cold, Mason." "Yeah. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I'm not going to just roll over and take it." Rick nodded slowly. "You need help, you call me. Day or night. I mean it." "I know. Thanks, man." I was halfway through my second whiskey when my phone buzzed. A Facebook message from Mrs. Grady, one of our neighbors. She was the neighborhood gossip, the kind of woman who knew everyone's business before they did. "Mason, honey, I hope this isn't out of line, but I saw Laura at the Lakewood Inn last night, with a man. Should I be worried for you, hun?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Thanks for letting me know, Mrs. Grady. I appreciate you looking out for me." Her response came immediately. "Anytime, dear. You're a good man. You deserve better." I finished my drink and drove home. Laura was there when I arrived, cooking dinner like nothing was wrong. The girls were doing homework at the kitchen table. It was a perfect domestic scene, the kind that belonged on a TV commercial. "Hey, honey," Laura said, smiling at me. "How was your day?" "Fine," I said. "Yours?" "Oh, you know, Same old stuff. I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered when she'd become such a good liar. Or maybe she'd always been this good, and I'd just been too trusting to notice. Actually, Laura said, stirring something on the stove, I was thinking, we should take a family trip this weekend, get out of the city, reconnect, maybe go out to your dad's old cabin? There it was, the trap, laid out like a welcome mat. That sounds great, I said, and I watched her smile widen. Perfect. I'll make the arrangements. That night, after the girls were asleep, I lay in bed next to Laura and listened to her breathe. She fell asleep quickly, like she didn't have a care in the world, like she wasn't planning to destroy everything we'd built together. I didn't sleep at all. The cabin had belonged to my father, a weathered structure deep in the East Texas woods near Cypress Swamp. Dad had bought it 30 years ago as a hunting retreat, and after he died, it became mine. I'd kept it maintained, went out there a few times a year to check on things, but mostly it just sat empty, slowly being reclaimed by the forest. It was the perfect place to end a marriage, apparently. We loaded up the truck Friday afternoon, me, Laura, Beth, and Janie. The girls were excited, chattering about s'mores and hiking. Laura was in a good mood, better than she'd been in months. She kept touching my arm, smiling at me, playing the role of loving wife so perfectly that if I didn't know better, I might have believed it. But I did know better. The drive took 3 hours, the last hour on increasingly rough roads until we finally pulled up to the cabin. It looked the same as always, rough pine boards, a sagging porch, windows that needed cleaning. The woods pressed in close on all sides, and you could hear the swamp in the distance, a low chorus of frogs and insects. It's creepy, Janie said, peering out the window. It's an adventure, I told her, ruffling her hair. Come on, let's get unpacked. We spent the afternoon settling in. I got the generator running, checked the water pump, made sure everything was working. Laura made sandwiches for dinner while the girls explored the area around the cabin, staying close like I'd told them to. The woods could be dangerous if you didn't know them. That evening, as the sun was setting and the shadows were getting long, Laura's phone buzzed. Oh, she said, looking at the screen. That's weird. What? Tara and Scott are nearby. Their car broke down, apparently. They were heading to some resort and got a flat tire. They're asking if they can come here for the night, get help in the morning. I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my voice casual. Sure. The more the merrier. Laura smiled and started texting. 20 minutes later, headlights appeared through the trees. Scott's expensive SUV pulled up, and out stepped Tara and Scott himself, looking like they'd just come from a country club instead of having car trouble. Mason, buddy, Scott said, walking up with his hand extended. He was tall, tan, with perfectly styled hair and teeth so white they probably glowed in the dark. Thanks so much for this. We were really in a bind. I shook his hand, squeezing just a little harder than necessary. No problem. Any friend of Laura's. Old friends, Scott said, glancing at Laura with a smile that made me want to break his nose. Laura and I go way back. So I've heard. We all went inside. The cabin wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms, a main room with a fireplace and a tiny kitchen. The girls were already in their room, and Laura suggested that Tara could sleep on the couch while Scott took the other bedroom. I'll sleep on the couch, I said. Scott can have our room. Laura and I don't mind sharing with the girls for one night. Don't be silly, Laura said quickly. You've been working so hard. You need a good night's sleep. The way she said it, the look she exchanged with Scott, I knew then that something was going to happen tonight. The camping trip, the broken-down car, all of it was orchestrated. They were going to kill me. The realization hit me like a bucket of ice water. This wasn't just about divorce. This was about getting rid of me permanently. Life insurance, maybe. Or just the freedom to be together without the messy complications of custody battles and divided assets. I excused myself and went outside, pretending to check on something with the generator. My hands were shaking again. I pulled out my phone, but there was no signal out here. There never was. I was alone, 3 hours from civilization, with a wife who wanted me dead and her lover who was apparently willing to help. Think, Mason. Think. I went to my truck and opened the toolbox in the bed. Under the wrenches and screwdrivers, I found what I was looking for: a bulletproof vest. I'd bought it years ago, after a contractor I knew got shot during a robbery at a job site. It was probably paranoid, but I'd kept it, just in case. Just in case turned out to be tonight. I put it on under my jacket, the weight of it strange but reassuring. Then I went back inside. The evening dragged on. We sat around the fireplace making small talk. Scott told stories about his real estate deals, bragging about commissions and celebrity clients. Tara laughed at everything he said, touching his arm, playing wingman. Laura watched me with this strange expression, like she was memorizing my face. Around 10, the girls went to bed. I tucked them in, kissed their foreheads. "Love you, Dad," Janie whispered. "Love you too, baby girl." When I came back out, Laura suggested we all have drinks. She'd brought wine, and Scott had whiskey. I accepted a glass but barely touched it. I didn't trust anything they gave me. "Mason," Scott said, leaning back in his chair. "Laura tells me you're having some trouble with the business. Slow season?" "It's fine," I said. "Because if you ever need advice, I know people. Investors, developers. I could make some introductions." "I'm good." "He's stubborn," Laura said, and there was an edge to her voice. "He never wants help, even when he needs it." "Independence is admirable," Scott said, "but sometimes you have to know when to ask for support." They kept pushing, needling, and I realized they were trying to provoke me. They wanted me angry, wanted me to storm off into the woods alone, so I gave them what they wanted. "You know what?" I stood up. "I need some air. You all enjoy yourselves." "Mason," Laura started, but I was already heading for the door. "I'll be fine. Just need to clear my head." I walked out into the darkness, letting the screen door slam behind me. The woods were pitch black except for the light spilling from the cabin windows. I could hear them inside, their voices low and urgent. I didn't go far, just far enough to be out of sight. Then I circled back, staying in the shadows. 10 minutes later, my phone, the one I'd left on the table inside, started ringing. I could hear it through the window. Laura answered it. "Hello? Oh my God, what? Beth's hurt? Where? Okay, we'll find him." The door burst open. Laura, Tara, and Scott came running out. "Mason! Mason!" Laura was screaming. "Beth fell! She's hurt! She went outside and fell!" I stepped out from behind a tree. "I'm here. Where is she?" "Down by the creek," Scott said, pointing into the darkness. "She said she saw something and went to look. We heard her scream." My heart lurched. Beth. I started running toward the creek, my flashlight beam bouncing through the trees. Behind me, I could hear them following. The creek was about a quarter-mile from the cabin, down a steep embankment. I was halfway there when I realized I couldn't hear them anymore. I stopped, turned around. Scott was standing 10 feet away, and he had a gun. "I'm really sorry about this, Mason," he said, "but you're in the way." The first shot hit me in the chest, right over my heart. The impact knocked me backward, and I fell, rolling down the embankment into the muddy creek bed. The second shot hit me in the same place as I tried to get up. I lay there in the mud, the wind knocked out of me, my chest screaming with pain, even though the vest had stopped the bullets. I could hear them coming down the slope. "Is he dead?" That was Tara, her voice shaky. "2 in the chest," Scott said. "He's gone." "We need to make sure," Laura said, and her voice was cold, clinical. "Check his pulse." I held my breath, forcing myself to stay absolutely still, even though every instinct was screaming at me to move. Through slitted eyes, I saw Scott lean over me, his fingers pressing against my neck. I'd slowed my breathing, shallow and irregular, and the mud covering me made it hard to see clearly in the flashlight beam. "Nothing," Scott said. "He's dead." "Oh, God," Tara said. "Oh, God, we really did it." "Shut up," Laura snapped. "We stick to the plan. He went crazy, started ranting about us having an affair, which we'll deny, and then he ran off into the woods. We tried to find him, but he was gone. By the time anyone finds the body, if they ever do, it'll look like an accident. He fell, hit his head, drowned in the creek." "What about the girls?" Tara asked. "They're asleep. They didn't see anything. We'll tell them Dad went for a walk and never came back. They'll be sad, but they'll get over it. Kids are resilient." The same thing she'd said before. Kids are resilient. They stood there for another minute, making sure I wasn't moving, and then they climbed back up the embankment. I heard the truck start, my truck, and then the sound of it driving away. They were taking my daughters. I lay there in the mud for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, listening to the sounds of the swamp, frogs, insects, the rustle of things moving through the undergrowth. My chest felt like someone had hit me with a sledgehammer, and when I finally sat up, I had to bite back a scream. The vest had saved my life, but I was going to have some spectacular bruises. I pulled out my phone, the real one, the one I'd kept in my pocket. Still no signal. I was 3 hours from help, in the middle of nowhere, and everyone thought I was dead. Everyone except me. I started walking. Not back to the cabin. There was nothing for me there. Instead, I headed deeper into the swamp, toward Clem's place. Clem was an ex-con who'd worked for me a few years back, doing odd jobs on construction sites. He'd done time for check fraud, got out, and was trying to go straight. I'd given him work when no one else would, and he'd never forgotten it. He lived out here in a trailer, off the grid, and if anyone could help me, it was him. It took me 2 hours to find his place, stumbling through the dark, following half-remembered paths. By the time I saw the lights of his trailer, I was covered in mud, soaked with swamp water, and barely standing. I knocked on his door. Clem opened it, took one look at me and said, "You look like something crawled out of a horror movie." "I need help," I said, and then I collapsed. I woke up on Clem's couch, sunlight streaming through dirty windows. Every part of my body hurt. My chest was on fire, my muscles ached, and my head felt like it was stuffed with cotton. "Easy," Clem said, appearing with a cup of coffee. He was a wiry guy in his 50s, all sinew and scars, with eyes that had seen too much. "You've been out for about 6 hours. I cleaned you up best I could, but you should probably see a doctor." "Can't," I croaked. "They think I'm dead." "Yeah, you mentioned that. Several times. Thought you were hallucinating at first, but then I saw this." He held up the bulletproof vest. There were 2 clear impact marks on it, right over where my heart would be. "Someone really wanted you gone," Clem said. I told him everything. The affair, the setup, the shooting. Laura and Scott driving off with my daughters. Clem listened without interrupting, his face getting darker. "That's cold," he said when I finished. "That's really, really cold. I need to get back to Dallas. I need to get my girls." "You need a plan first. You go charging back now, what's to stop them from finishing the job? Or calling the cops, saying you went crazy, that they had to defend themselves?" He was right. I needed to think this through. "You got any proof?" Clem asked. "Of the affair? The setup?" "Screenshots. On my phone. But I need more. You need everything. You need them buried so deep they'll never see daylight again." Over the next few hours we made a plan. Clem drove into town, a different town, not anywhere near Dallas, and bought a burner laptop and a few other supplies. While he was gone, I went through my phone, organizing everything I had. The screenshots from Laura's burner phone, the texts, the photos. Then I did something I probably should have done weeks ago. I hacked into Laura's cloud storage. It wasn't hard. We'd set up our accounts years ago, and she'd never changed her password. I logged in and started downloading everything. Photos, videos, documents. It was all there, a complete record of her affair with Scott. And then I found the video. It was dated 3 days ago. Laura and Scott sitting in his car talking. I turned up the volume. "Are you sure about this?" Scott was saying. "I mean, actually going through with it?" "It's the only way," Laura said. "If we divorce, he'll fight for custody. He'll take half of everything. This way, it's clean. Tragic accident, grieving widow, life insurance." "How much?" "500,000, plus the house, the business. We'll have enough to start over. Do it right this time." "And the girls?" "They'll adjust. They love you already. I've been talking you up for months. In a year, they won't even remember Mason clearly. Kids' memories are flexible." My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. "I got everything," Clem said, coming back with his supplies. He saw my face. "What happened?" I showed him the video. He watched it twice, then looked at me. "You got them," he said. "You got them dead to rights. I need more. I need to know what they're doing now, what they're telling people." Clem opened the laptop and showed me how to access the neighborhood Facebook group. I'd never paid much attention to it before. It was mostly complaints about noise and people asking for recommendations for plumbers, but now it was full of posts about me. "Has anyone seen Mason Carter? His wife says he went missing during a camping trip. Laura Carter is asking for help finding her husband. He apparently had some kind of breakdown and ran off into the woods. If anyone in the East Texas area sees him, please contact the police." Praying for the Carter family. Such a scary situation. And then, buried in the comments, Mrs. Grady. "I hate to say it, but I saw this coming. Laura's been so stressed lately. I hope Mason gets the help he needs." They were building a narrative. Unstable husband, stressed wife, tragic disappearance. "I need to get back," I said, "but I can't just show up. I need to do this right." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking they want to bury me, so let's stay buried. Let them think they won. And then, when they're comfortable, when they think they've gotten away with it, I'll show them what a dead man can do." Clem grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. "Now you're talking." Over the next 3 days, I stayed at Clem's place, recovering and planning. I used the burner laptop to monitor everything: social media, local news, even Laura's cloud account. She'd moved into Scott's condo in Highland Park, just like she'd planned. My daughters were there too. I saw photos of them on Laura's private Instagram, smiling but looking confused. "Missing Dad but staying strong," one caption read. "The girls are being so brave. It took everything I had not to drive straight there and take them back." But Clem was right. I needed to do this smart. I also discovered that Laura and Tara had been busy. They'd filed paperwork to have me declared dead. Well, missing, which was the first step. They'd contacted my business partner about dissolving the company. They'd even started planning a memorial service. "We want to celebrate Mason's life," Laura told a local news crew that showed up to cover the mysterious disappearance. "He was a wonderful father and husband. We just hope he's found safe." She was good. She was really, really good. If I didn't know better, I'd believe her, but I did know better. On the 4th day, I called Rick from Clem's landline. He answered on the first ring. "Rick's bar." "It's me." Silence. Then, "Mason? Holy hell, man, everyone thinks you're dead." "I know. I need your help. Anything. Name it." I told him a condensed version of what had happened. Rick listened, and when I finished, he let out a long breath. "That's insane. That's absolutely insane." "I know. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to act normal. Don't tell anyone I called. Keep going to the bar, keep living your life. But I need information. I need to know what Laura and Scott are doing, what they're saying." "I can do that. Mason, are you okay? Like really okay?" "I've been better, but I will be. Once I make this right." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve." Over the next week, Rick became my eyes and ears. He told me that Scott had been bragging at the country club about his new family, that Laura had been meeting with lawyers about my estate, that Tara had been spreading rumors about my mental health, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd been unstable for months. They thought they'd won. It was time to show them they were wrong. I returned to Dallas on a Tuesday, 2 weeks after they'd left me for dead in the swamp. I looked different, thinner, harder, with a beard I'd grown out and a baseball cap pulled low. I stayed at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town and started my reconnaissance. First stop, Scott's condo. It was in a fancy building in Highland Park, all glass and steel and pretension. I watched from across the street as Laura and the girls came out one morning. Beth and Janie were in their school uniforms, and Laura was dressed for work. She looked happy, relaxed, like she didn't have a care in the world. Scott came out behind them, kissing Laura goodbye, ruffling Beth's hair, playing daddy. I took photos of everything. Next, I visited my business. My partner Dave was a good guy, honest and hardworking. Laura had apparently told him I'd had a breakdown, that I'd run off and might not be coming back. Dave looked stressed when I saw him through the office window, probably worried about the future of the company. I made a note to fix that soon. Then I went to Rick's bar. It was late afternoon, the place mostly empty. Rick looked up when I walked in, and his eyes went wide. "Holy, not so loud," I said, sliding onto a bar stool. "Pour me a beer and act natural." Rick poured the beer with shaking hands. "Man, you look like you've been through hell." "I have, but I'm back now." "What's the plan?" "Layered revenge," I said. "I'm not just going to expose them. I'm going to destroy them, piece by piece. Everything they are, everything they've built on my grave. I'm going to tear it all down." "I'm in," Rick said immediately. "Whatever you need. I need a lawyer, a good one, someone who specializes in family law and fraud. I know a guy. Helped my sister with her divorce. He's tough. Set up a meeting, somewhere private." The meeting happened 2 days later, in a back room at Rick's bar. The lawyer's name was Tom Hendricks, a short, intense man in his 50s with a reputation for being ruthless. "This is one hell of a story," Tom said after I'd explained everything. "You have proof?" I showed him. The screenshots, the videos, the cloud storage downloads. Everything. Tom whistled low. "This is good, this is really good. Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. We can bury them." "I don't want them buried legally," I said. "Not yet. I want them buried socially first. I want everyone to know what they did. I want them to lose everything before the law even gets involved." Tom leaned back, considering. "That's risky. If you tip your hand too early—" "I know, but I need to do this my way. Can you help me?" He thought about it, then nodded. "I can help you, but we do it carefully, methodically, one step at a time. That's exactly what I want." The first step was Scott's car. Scott drove a cherry-red Camaro, a midlife crisis on wheels that he loved more than anything. He washed it every weekend, parked it in a special spot at his condo, treated it like a baby. So I killed it. Not literally. I'm not a monster. But I did pour a generous amount of sugar in the gas tank one night when he was asleep. Then, just for good measure, I spray-painted "Cheater" across the hood in bright yellow letters. I set up a camera across the street and waited. Scott's reaction the next morning was everything I'd hoped for. He came out, coffee in hand, saw his car, and absolutely lost it. He was screaming, pacing, calling the police. Laura came running out, and I got it all on video. Then I posted it anonymously to the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, "Looks like someone in Highland Park has been naughty. Karma's a beautiful thing." The comments exploded. People recognized Scott from his real estate ads. They started speculating about who he'd cheated on, what he'd done. By noon, it had been shared 500 times. Scott's professional reputation took its first hit. But I wasn't done. A few days later, I arranged to accidentally run into Scott at Rick's bar. I'd shaved the beard, changed my appearance enough that I could pass for someone who looked like Mason Carter, but couldn't possibly be him. After all, Mason Carter was missing and presumed dead. Scott was there with some buddies, celebrating a sale. He was loud, obnoxious, buying rounds and bragging about his success. I waited until he went to the bathroom, then followed him in. "Scott Williams," I said, leaning against the door. He looked up, startled. "Do I know you?" "You should. You shot me twice in the chest and left me to die in a swamp." The color drained from his face. "Mason?" Surprise. He tried to push past me, but I was ready. Years of wrestling had taught me how to control someone bigger than me, and I put him in a hold. Nothing that would hurt him permanently, but painful enough to make a point. "Try to kill me again," I whispered in his ear, "and I'll make you famous. I've got videos, Scott. I've got everything. And if you or Laura try anything, if you even look at my daughters wrong, it all goes public. Understood?" He nodded frantically, and I let him go. He stumbled out of the bathroom, and I watched him leave the bar at a near run, his celebration forgotten. Rick appeared at my elbow. "That was risky." "I know, but I needed him scared. Scared people make mistakes." The next step was financial. With Tom's help, I froze all our joint accounts. Laura had been spending freely, thinking she had access to everything, but suddenly, her cards started getting declined. I also contacted my business partner, Dave, and explained the situation. He was shocked, angry, and immediately on my side. "What do you need?" Dave asked. "I need you to block any attempts to dissolve the company. Laura's going to try to cash out my share. Don't let her." "Done." Then I went after Laura's job. I anonymously sent her boss, Mr. Halpin, the videos and screenshots of her affair. Not because I'm vindictive, okay, maybe a little because I'm vindictive, but because she'd been conducting her affair partly on company time using company resources. She'd taken business trips that were really trysts with Scott. She'd used company phones and computers for personal communications. Mr. Halpin was not amused. Laura was called into a meeting. I know because Rick had a friend who worked in her building, and word got back to me. She was given a choice: resign quietly or be fired publicly. She resigned. Her carefully constructed life was starting to crumble, and she didn't even know I was the one pulling the strings. But the best part, the part that made everything worthwhile, came next. I sent Laura a text from a new burner phone. "Miss me yet? You should." Her response came within seconds. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you did. Someone who's coming for everything you stole." She didn't respond after that, but I could imagine her panic. She'd be wondering who knew, how much they knew, whether it was me or someone else. Let her wonder. Let her sweat. Because I was just getting started. Laura and Scott's paranoia was a beautiful thing to watch. Through Rick's network of friends and acquaintances, I heard about their increasingly frantic conversations. They'd changed their locks, installed security cameras, and Scott had even hired a private investigator to figure out who was harassing them. Good luck with that. My next move was more public. Laura and Scott were planning to attend a charity gala, one of those fancy Dallas events where rich people congratulate themselves for donating money they'll write off on their taxes. Scott had bought a table, probably to network and rebuild his reputation after the car incident. I bought a ticket too. The gala was at a downtown hotel, all crystal chandeliers and designer dresses. I wore a suit I'd borrowed from Rick, kept my head down, and positioned myself near the AV booth. I'd paid the tech guy $500 to let me add a last-minute video to the presentation. The evening proceeded normally. Dinner, speeches, a video montage of the charity's good works. And then, right at the end, my contribution played on the massive screens around the ballroom. It was the video of Laura and Scott in his car, discussing my murder. The audio was crystal clear, thanks to the enhancement software Tom had recommended. "It's the only way. If we divorce, he'll fight for custody. This way, it's clean. Tragic accident, grieving widow, life insurance." The ballroom went silent. 500 people watched as Laura and Scott planned to kill me, discussed the payout, talked about how my daughters would adjust. Then the screen cut to photos. Scott and Laura at the Lakewood Inn. Timestamps, receipts, everything. The final slide was simple text. Mason Carter is alive, and he knows everything. The lights came up. Everyone was staring at Laura and Scott's table. Laura was white as a sheet. Scott was already standing, trying to leave. But the exits were blocked by people, curious, horrified, angry people who'd just watched them plot murder. Someone started recording on their phone, then another person. Within minutes, the video was online, spreading across social media like wildfire. I slipped out a side exit and went back to my motel room where I watched the fallout on my laptop. Scott's real estate license was suspended pending investigation. Laura's resignation from her job made more sense now, and her former employer released a statement distancing themselves from her. The police opened an investigation into my disappearance, and my daughters, my beautiful, smart daughters, were removed from Laura's custody and placed temporarily with Rick, who I'd already arranged as an emergency contact. Everything was falling into place, but there was still one more twist I hadn't seen coming. 3 days after the gala, Tara showed up at Rick's bar. She looked terrible, exhausted, scared, makeup smeared. Rick called me immediately, and I arrived within minutes. "I need to talk to you," Tara said when she saw me. "Please, I need to tell you the truth." We went to the back room. Rick stayed close, just in case. "What truth?" I asked. Tara started crying. It wasn't Scott. It was Scott's idea at first, but he couldn't do it. When they took you out to the woods, Scott was supposed to shoot you, but he froze. He couldn't pull the trigger. My blood went cold. "Then who—" "Laura," Tara whispered. "Laura took the gun and shot you herself. Scott tried to stop her, but she did it. She shot you twice and didn't even hesitate." The room spun. I'd known Laura was cold, but this was something else entirely. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I can't live with it anymore. Because I helped them and I'm going to hell for it, and I need to make it right. I'll testify. I'll tell the police everything. Just please, please don't let them get away with it." I looked at her for a long moment. She was a mess, broken by guilt and fear. Part of me wanted to hate her. She'd been part of the plan, after all. But another part of me recognized that she was a victim too, in her own way. Laura had manipulated her, used her, just like she'd used everyone else. "Okay," I said. "You'll testify. Tom will arrange it. But you tell the truth, all of it. No protecting Laura." "I won't. I promise." True to her word, Tara went to the police the next day. With her testimony, the screenshots, the videos, and the physical evidence from the swamp, they'd found the bullets, the shell casings, everything. The case against Laura and Scott became airtight. They were arrested on a Thursday morning. I watched from across the street as police led them out of Scott's condo in handcuffs. Laura was screaming, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that I'd staged everything. Scott was silent, his head down. The neighbors came out to watch. Mrs. Grady was there, shaking her head. The Fletchers were recording on their phones. Everyone who'd once believed Laura's lies about me now saw the truth. But I still wasn't done. Because Laura and Scott had one more card to play, and I needed to be ready for it. Laura made bail within 48 hours. Her parents mortgaged their house to do it. Scott's bail was higher, but his real estate connections came through. They were both out, both awaiting trial, and both desperate. Desperate people are dangerous. Tom warned me to be careful. "They've got nothing to lose now," he said. "They might try something." He was right. I'd moved back into my house, the one Laura and I had shared, the one she'd abandoned when she moved in with Scott. It was strange being there alone, seeing all the remnants of our life together. Photos on the walls, the girls' toys in their rooms, evidence of a family that no longer existed. I was working on some repairs, the place had been neglected, when I heard glass breaking downstairs. It was 11 at night. I'd been in the master bedroom, and the sound came from the kitchen. I grabbed my phone and a hammer, not much of a weapon, but better than nothing, and crept downstairs. Laura and Scott were in my house. They'd broken in through the back door, and they were searching through my home office, clearly looking for something. Documents, maybe, or evidence they could use to discredit me. "Looking for something?" I asked from the doorway. They both spun around. Laura had a crowbar in her hand. Scott had a flashlight. They looked wild, cornered. "This is our house," Laura said. "You can't keep us out." "Actually, I can. It's called breaking and entering." "You ruined everything," she hissed. "Everything we built, everything we planned. You were supposed to stay dead." "Yeah, well, I'm stubborn that way." Scott moved toward me and I raised the hammer. "Don't." "We just want the recordings," Scott said. "The videos, the screenshots, give them to us and we'll leave." "No. Mason, please." Laura's voice changed, became softer. It was the voice she'd used when we were dating, when she wanted something. "Please, think about the girls. Think about what this is doing to them. We can still fix this. We can still be a family." "A family?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You shot me. You left me to die. You tried to steal my daughters and my life. And you think we can be a family?" "It was a mistake. I was confused. I was scared." "You were greedy," I interrupted. "You wanted Scott and the money and the life you thought you deserved, and I was in the way. So you decided to kill me. That's not confusion, Laura. That's murder." She screamed and rushed at me with the crowbar. I sidestepped, and she crashed into the wall. Scott tried to grab me, but I'd been ready for this. I'd been ready since the moment I heard them break in. I hit the button on my phone, and every light in the house blazed on. The security cameras I'd installed, the ones they didn't know about, were recording everything, and the doors, which I'd rigged with electronic locks, sealed shut. "What did you do?" Scott demanded. "I trapped you," I said simply. "And I'm live-streaming this whole thing to the neighborhood Facebook group. Say hi to your audience." Laura looked up at the camera in the corner, her face twisting with rage and horror. "You can't." "I already did. Everyone's watching. Everyone can see you breaking into my house, threatening me, trying to destroy evidence. You wanted to bury me? Congratulations, you just buried yourselves." The doorbell rang. Then came the pounding. "Police! Open up!" I unlocked the doors remotely, and officers flooded in. They'd been waiting outside. I'd called them the moment I heard the break-in, and they'd been monitoring the live stream too. Laura and Scott were arrested again, this time for breaking and entering, assault, and attempted intimidation of a witness. Their bail was revoked. They'd be in jail until trial. But the real punishment wasn't the jail time. It was everything else. The live stream had been viewed over 50,000 times. The neighborhood Facebook group exploded with comments, shares, reactions. Everyone in Dallas knew what Laura and Scott had done. Their faces were everywhere, their names synonymous with betrayal and attempted murder. Scott's real estate business collapsed completely. His license was permanently revoked. His assets were seized to pay for his legal defense. Laura's parents disowned her after learning the full extent of what she'd done. Her friends abandoned her. Even Tara, who'd testified against her, received more sympathy than Laura did. And me? I got my daughters back. Full custody. No contest. Beth and Janie came home on a sunny Saturday morning, and I made them pancakes while they told me about everything they'd been through. "We knew Mom was lying," Beth said. "We knew you wouldn't just leave us." "Never," I told her, hugging them both. "I would never leave you." The trial happened 6 months later. With all the evidence, the testimony, and the public record, it was almost anticlimactic. Laura was convicted of attempted murder, fraud, and a dozen other charges. She got 20 years. Scott got 15 as an accessory. I didn't go to the sentencing. I didn't need to see them again. Instead, I took my daughters to the park, and we flew kites until the sun set. That night, standing on my porch, watching the neighborhood settle in for the evening, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the violence, the revenge. It had been brutal and exhausting and painful, but I'd survived. They'd tried to drown me in mud, tried to bury me in the swamp, tried to erase me from existence. They forgot I learned to swim.